It's time for everybody's favorite book club. Everybody's favorite book club. Starring Forster Leafwood. Pepper the Loon. Sparky Ratchington. The Child Psychologist. Ace/Gator.
It's time.
Your host, Miles Crenshaw.
I want to be just like you. I want to ride my bicycle, bicycle, bicycle. I want to ride my bicycle. I want to ride my bike. I want to ride my bicycle. I want to ride it where I like. You say black.
I don't want to set the world on fire.
Hello?
I just want to start a flame in your heart.
Welcome to the first meeting of Book Club. My name is Miles Crenshaw, and we'll start out by each of you introducing yourselves.
Rex Ruford, aka Gator.
Forster Leafwood, and a lumberjack.
Pepper, Virginia cheesecake, salt.
Dr. Errol von Strausenberger, child psychologist.
Sparky Ratchington, son of Sparkplug Tycoon, Richard Lambeth.
Okay, we're all joined here today because we all read the novel A Separate Piece by John Knowles. And I'd like to start out by each of you telling me your favorite character and your favorite scene of the book. So,
Gene, because he kills Finney.
And your favorite
and your favorite part?
Mr. Gator?
Oh, the part where Finney dies is my favorite.
Right. About you, Forrester?
What was the question?
Your favorite character and your favorite part.
Come back to me. I didn't think about this.
About you.
I like a lapper.
Because he's like you.
Hey.
It's not very nice, Mr. Roofer.
I like it when he skis. That's my favorite part.
When elements of the story are critically and psychologically analyzed, I would have to say that Finney is in fact my favorite character. Gene being the most interesting, but Finney being my favorite. My favorite part is in fact, I am very ashamed to say, when the boys engage in a snowball fight. Such a raucous and illogical activity to partake of in the psychological mind. Anyway, that's for later.
About you.
Favorite character? Finney, because he gets worked on a lot. I like to
thought we
work on
established the
things.
secrets of book club.
I'm a mechanic. Favorite part? When he falls off of the tree, because he gets broken, and I like broken things.
Because you can fix them.
Because I fixed them with my wrench.
We got a genius here, boys. We got a genius.
Alright, so, like, what's an idea we can talk about?
Well, what about my thing?
Back to you, Mr.
My
Leafwood.
favorite character would
Lumberjack.
have to be the tree. It's got a lot of personality. May not classify as a character, but I think it does.
How tall was it?
It never specified. It
Oh,
was a
that's
big
good.
tree.
How do you know?
The tree represents.
What sort of a lumberjack doesn't know how tall a tree is that he's cutting down? I'm curious.
Did I cut down the tree? I don't think so.
No, but you should.
You read about the tree.
What you read about
My
the
house
tree.
is right outside.
Tree
Very well.
Anyway.
Dr. Crenshaw.
And I'd just like to say my favorite part is chapter 12.
Alright, so what can we talk about?
Dr. Crenshaw.
No, we're gonna cut this
Alright,
part
fine.
out. I'm saying, what can we talk about?
Grant, what do we
So the big deal of this whole book was whether or not Finney falling from the tree was an accident.
We could talk
How do
about
you guys
Jane's
feel?
insecurity.
We'll get to that as a result of this topic. Like
Yeah.
it'll branch
And,
off
like-
because of this accident.
Yeah, we're gonna say, like, Gene's insecure because of this. Finney makes Gene insecure because he does all these things. And then, like, that's how he views life and stuff like that.
What?
Okay. So, okay. Going off of what Mr. Ratchington said, I'd like to say that the main conflict in the story is deciding whether or not Gene intentionally knocked Finney off of the tree limb.
No.
What do you think about this, Mr. Ratchington?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say transmission. But second of all, I'd like to say that it was an obviously purposeful thing that he knocked him off of the tree because of his insecurities and his deep, dark mind. Much like oil in the oil pan of a car.
About you, Mr.
Interesting parallel, Mr. Ratchington. Am I correct?
Indubitably.
Well, when carefully analyzed psychologically and with literary elements, I would have to say that this was indeed a vengeful act of Gene against his friend Finney. And when plot elements are analyzed and when character elements are analyzed with psychoanalysis and careful psychological research, it becomes quite clear, as well as literary evidence is also readily available for scrutiny.
About your opinion.
Well, Miles, either way, it wasn't a conscious act in my opinion. He either did it subconsciously, which does make him guilty, but he shouldn't feel guilty because it wasn't conscious. Or he didn't do it purposely.
Because
Screw the doorbell.
Or he didn't do it purpose. How do you say that word?
purposefully.
Purposefully.
Right.
Purposefully, Mr. Looney?
Purposefully.
It's cheesecake. Mr. Cheesecake Salt.
No, it's salt.
He didn't do it
Mr. Cheesecake Salt Shaker.
Let the man speak.
He didn't do it purposefully. But after it happened, he immediately felt remorse for Finney. And because other people thought he did it too, he thought he did it himself. Or he didn't think it, and he didn't know what to think.
About you, Mr. Leafwood.
I think he did it on purpose, mainly because he was in the text. It specified that he was jealous. He was jealous of Finney, and that his feelings were building up to that point. And it specifically says in the text that he jostled the limb.
Yes.
He didn't jostle them, it jounced. Read it. It says jounced. Jounced
Sorry,
does not mean
jounced.
From now on, we will use the
Jounce.
adjective
Indeed,
jounce.
Mr. Cheesecake is right.
Indeed.
It's Cheesecake Salt Shaker.
Indubitably.
About you, Ace.
I thought he just kind of stepped forward. Was it joust?
Joust.
Just say
Jounce.
joust.
Jounced.
Jostled?
Say joust.
Jounced.
Jounced. Well, it's clear that he was jealous, but to say that he pushed his own friend, his best friend, off
He didn't push. He jostled the
To-
limb that
to-
his friend was
Jounce.
to
on. Joust. He jousted the limb
jounce
his friend was on.
the limb his friend was on.
But Mr. Gator jealousy makes a man most hostile.
Now,
in his
there-
endeavors.
There's very good evidence that supports that Gene was jealous. I mean, it says...
I
Coming
agree.
from
I agree
coming
with
from a
that.
leper, crazy
Feelings does
man.
not mean guilty.
That doesn't make him
The only
guilty.
witness was leper, and He sees dead body parts everywhere.
Whether it was a split-second decision or not, he did it. On
I mean, there were obviously parts. Well,
For this man,
Doctor,
blows a
you can-
gasket, answer
he's-
him.
yes.
You can do anything accidentally. You can jounce something accidentally. You can jostle it accidentally. You can do anything accidentally.
Doctor,
Just because
didn't
it
it
says
suck?
he did it,
That
doesn't
is
mean he
true.
did it
Doctor,
purposely.
is
However,
subconscious
there are-
really accidental?
There is
or
just
it purposeful?
too much evidence that supports that
Whoa.
Gene's subconscious.
Would you like to list some of that evidence?
Can we hear
Miles?
some?
The doctor is going to tell us if the subconscious is accidental or purposeful.
I'm gonna say that his shadow purposefully caused him to do this.
Mr.
What?
Crenshaw, that is absurd.
How's this absurd?
Anyway. To continue the point of Mr. Ratchington and Mr. Gator's question as well, pertaining to the subconscious occurrences as accidents or malicious and indeed voluntary occurrences or actions, when you're a psychiatrist and child psychologist, you see several different disorders in which people don't know or are not aware that they are doing things based on the traits and personalities of their disorder, but also you see people that are readily aware and are completely comfortable and accepting of the things that they do. So to say that the subconscious is an accident is not necessarily always true, to answer your questions.
Well, what if it wasn't his subconscious?
I
What
never
if
said
Finney fell?
subconsciously meant accidental.
Because you
I
don't-
said if it was subconscious, that still means he's guilty because subconscious is part of him.
That's true. Well, personally, I think that there was just too much jealousy that had already built up inside Gene. I mean, it was obvious that he was jealous of how good of a person Finney was and how good he was at everything. But I think that he would never purposely do that to his friend, but I think maybe the demons inside him took over his body and caused him to jounce the limb on purpose.
While we're on that, Miles, do you think we could go and talk about perhaps why Gene was jealous?
Yes, you can elaborate on that if you'd like.
Well, seeing as how my favorite character is Finney from the novel, Finney has all the attributes and traits that a teenage boy at private school ought to and might.
He wasn't
wish
very
to
smart.
Very good
Ooh.
point.
Good point.
But he was
And-
athletic.
and
he was
did-
athletic.
However,
did lure
athleticism would have been more
Gene.
important for the task that all of those boys were trying to achieve, which was
were in the
enlistment into the United States Army.
They were in the summer session to get ready for the army, to get done with their schooling sooner.
That's a good point too.
Well,
So athleticism.
But
would
you
have
can't
been
say he had
To
all
move
the
on,
attributes.
to move on, back to
I'd
traits.
say
back
Finney
to
was jealous of
How are,
Gene.
how are
Let's
brains?
get back on the topic.
How are
Traits?
brains going to
I
help
would like
you
to
when you're in
elaborate on
war?
this.
They don't. They
Go
don't.
ahead, I'll come up with something.
So you
Um,
just run straight around.
Much like the other
One
mechanics are
person
jealous
at a
of me.
time.
Gentlemen,
One
Mr.
person at a
Ratchington.
time.
Mr. Ratchington would like to speak.
Much like the other mechanics are jealous of me and what I do in my field of work. He was jealous of Finney because Finney obviously had the most friends and could get away with, he could get away with it, whatever he wanted, no matter what it was at school.
He could basically talk his way out of any kind of trouble. That's the kind of great personality he had.
yes, I once met a
Like,
professional.
I like to see him.
I once,
I'd like to see him talk his way out of a bullet.
I once met an individual who said he
Or an
was
axe.
Or
a
an
pro
axe.
BSer in my psychiatry firm. He said that he used to talk to his teachers, tell them how beautiful they were to get out of papers and assignments and terrible grades like that. And it seemed as though all. Excuse me? Furthermore, pardon me while I compose myself. This gentleman has intrigued my psychiatric analysis fancy. Would someone else like to talk about why jealousy?
How about you, Mr.
I'm
Ripper?
going to cut your break lines.
Oh, I seem to get cut off every time. Go ahead, I'll pass.
Mr. Leafwood.
Mr. Leawood, would you like to speak?
Oh, put the axe down. You're not scaring anyone, Mr. Leafwood. Aim
Alright.
for my head if you're going to do it. Make it quick. I'll start out here. It seems to me that to any high school boy, especially at a private school in which the setting is other high school boys of the same age.
Very competitive.
It's a very competitive environment, alpha male scenario, and Finney has all the attributes that seem to make him worthy of everyone else's jealousy. I mean, he's charismatic, he's athletic, he can talk his way out of things, which is very helpful since he breaks a lot of rules. But it should be noted that he's a good rule breaker. He genuinely cares about the rules that he breaks and wants to respect them in every way that he can, even though he is breaking them.
He cares more about having fun.
Right.
Yeah,
That's what makes Gene mad. That's what makes Gene mad.
But it's hard to sympathize with Gene's jealousy when you see Finney, who isn't jealous of anyone. He's happy with himself, and he tries to make others happy.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why Gene is jealous of Finney, is because Finney basically lives his life to have fun and not think of anyone else as an enemy or be jealous of anyone else.
And he gets rewarded for it.
Yeah, and he gets rewarded for it, but by having a great life. That's basically it. That's like the attitude of the summer session.
This plays a
They
role.
basically go and have fun and just don't care.
So why doesn't Gene return Finney's comment at the beach about how he's his best friend?
Because of Gene's significant jealousy.
I mean, I don't know why he couldn't return it, because
he's jealous. He's highly jealous.
All right.
Yeah, but
now I do have one question.
One
question at the beach when it says that Finney ran and took his clothes off. Did he get completely naked, or did he keep his underwear on?
He even started that.
I fired it really loud.
You were the only one laughing.
You're sitting over here like the. You're trying to hold it.
Yeah, I do a bit proud.
You're using your tongue as a chorus.
He was like,
I fired it so loud. I wondered if that was you, but I was like, don't look at him. He'll only laugh on her.
I'm crying
No,
so
but
hard.
keep going, we'll cut it.
alright.
Okay.
What were you asking, Nate?
No, we're leaving that.
I was
No,
curious.
and we can.
Just a technical question. Like, do you think that when Finney's like taking his clothes off, does that mean he like gets to his underwear, or he's completely naked? Like, I don't know.
I'm honestly
What
not
kind of
sure.
question is that?
It's just a
What
question
do
about
others
it.
do?
Serious question about the book. Anyway, moving on.
No, we can go back to Finney's.
Well, if he strips down completely, that's
That's weird.
that's very, very significant.
Well, that's weird.
But it also plays a role in the homosexual.
If he does, he has a
aspect.
very bad
Gears
mental
looking for.
disorder.
They obviously have a brother-to-brother
they're in an
relationship,
all-boys school.
but there's a little bit extra.
Wait,
thrown
but
in there.
but there are also homosexual undertones.
I think
in this
because
story.
they're so
Yes.
different, that's why they're such good friends, though. Like if
That's
Gene
really
didn't,
true.
if Gene didn't have Finney, he probably wouldn't have any other friends. Like with
He
Black
basically-
Yeah, we
Bush.
see at the end of the book when Finney dies
He basically
that he conforms to society, and
he basically lives
so
through,
you have to see where
Finney.
would Gene be without Finney ever? He'd be just another mindless.
This is great discussion. Before we move on, let's just do some individual character analysis, starting with Gene, I guess. What is Gene?
Did you just take the
He's-
place of host?
Yeah, you
No, I
do.
was just
What are
trying.
you
I was
trying to
trying to
do
move
here?
the.
You're becoming the host.
Anyway, what we'll do.
Miles, please.
You turned from a
Who-
psychologist into a psycho.
Can we just go over?
They
Yeah,
are like
Logist.
Mr. Looney Cheesecake Salt Shaker.
We love logistics.
Anyway, an
You know what
individual,
psychologists are?
individual character analysis.
Blood-sucking waste of society.
Individual character analysis, starting with Gene. What do we think about Gene?
I
I'm
think
just
he's
curious.
a good person on the inside, but he just thinks everyone's out to get him. Like he sees the world as a competition.
I want to draw back
and
to
he
like
thinks everyone's going crazy.
Why does Leopard go crazy?
I didn't get that.
He experiences hallucinations while in the army.
PTS.
And that's interesting
Wait,
because
does he
It's the
make it?
devastation of the war.
Does he make it to
And
battle?
The training. You
No.
can't take it.
No.
he barely.
Well, it
makes
could be
through May.
PTS from the training.
Which makes
No, I was hitting a fuzzy.
he barely makes it through basic training because he sees hallucinations. So
I thought it was interesting enough how, like, Finney's.
wait.
Steven.
Right. How Finney's mindset of the world kind of changes. Like, before, he kind of thought of the war as kind of fake because he didn't really conceive the idea of enemies.
Yeah.
But after he realized that Leopard gone crazy, it made him kind of have to accept that the war was reality. And
What?
the
that
world
doesn't make
wasn't.
sense, Michael. Anything can make you go crazy. It doesn't have to be
Miles.
real to make
Who's
you go
Michael?
crazy.
Miles.
He obviously had a weak
Miles.
mind to begin with, so.
I keep saying Steven.
What's interesting about that is that everyone
Michael's short for Miles.
Yeah.
about how everyone at Devon thought that
It was
that the war was fake,
You'll do a fine job.
that the war didn't exist, and it's interesting how Finney would say that, and then Leopard decides to go off to war, and still even not completely believe it when Leopard comes back, crazy as a loon. So
Loon.
The
It's
Jewish
a loon.
people.
I think we should talk about
Lunatic.
like the title. We should talk about the title a separate piece because I think it applies to what happens in the book. So,
obviously, yes.
Do you have any ideas, Mr. Ratchington?
I believe it's called A Separate Peace because both characters find peace in different ways. Jean finds peace through hurting Finney.
Oh.
Specify.
Even though, like,
why does
because
he hurt Finney?
because Finney got hurt, Jean could finally
It seemed to
be
stress him out
happy
a
in his
little
life
bit, didn't
because Finney wasn't always
Finney-
the top
Finney
guy.
was never
happy
in
with his ignorance.
After Finney died, Finney wasn't in his
Reforming
life
the
anymore. And
society.
he had a form of peace
And then
because he
that's
no longer had to deal with the jealousy of Finney. Because
Finney
was
had
dead.
peace because he could
Finney
still
was dead,
live.
that's
I
it.
think that's
he could still live through Jean.
that's
like,
what
with the
that's what Gene
Olympic
was
thing and
like.
stuff.
That's like his personality. That's what he should be going for because he always kind of had to live like Finney to find peace with himself. He needs to find peace within his own
So
self
when Finney dies,
instead of Finney's
finds-
character. That he kind of finds a separate peace
Can someone
after Finney dies because he's able to live through himself without living through another person.
maybe explain to me why Gene thinks that Finney's funeral is his own?
Because he lives through Finney.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Michael, Miles.
They are as a one.
Well, I mean,
If what Miles
If
says
it
is
is-
true, then it explains why it was his own funeral. He was being reborn at that moment.
But I think a separate piece also represents like the line between Devon and actual reality because in the story Devon was kind of just like it was led by Finney's philosophy and ideas about the world, like there were no enemies and everything's just happy-go-lucky kind of. But
then why?
But as the war kind of came onto Devon, that peace was kind of blurred. There was no separation anymore, and the boys were forced to become a part of reality.
All these boys are prepared to go to war. If, as you say, Miles, that if this were lit by Finney's philosophy of fake enemies, then why is everyone so prepared to go off and fight a war that doesn't really exist?
But I think they were forced to realize that it was
It does
actually real
exist.
once Leper came back and he was loopy.
But back
They
then,
know it
back
exists.
then
They
war-
just refuse to believe
They
it.
refused to
then-
believe it
They know,
because
they
have
know it's
they
there.
refuse
They're
to
training
believe
for
it.
it.
they
no,
have
back
Finney's
then
mindset.
war was glorified. So they all believed that it wasn't as bad as everyone said because
Until, of course.
until
So.
he comes back and he's crazy,
All right. What's the next point
crazy
there,
as a
Miles?
loon.
Crazy.
One
I'm gonna go
intriguing
with my-
thing about the book is that there are so many contradicting ideas. It's really left up to the reader to determine whether or not they think that Gene did it on purpose or it was actually an accident.
And going along with that, it would have been nice to know what John Knowles actually experienced in real life. And
Considering that a separate piece was written
Based off-
tracing the experiences of John Knowles.
Right, even
And he relates to Gene.
Yes,
And
and he
anyway.
relates
and
to
he
Gene.
rather
even
than-
personified himself as Gene in the novel.
That is true.
To a certain extent.
Oh, I think I hear the oven. Is that the oven? Miles?
I believe that is the oven.
Well, we better
Well,
get those
we're-
cookies.
We're going to go. I'm gonna go grab those cookies, and
Don't forget the
we'll
juice.
make our reading assignments.
Don't
next.
forget the juice.
Don't forget
We'll
the
meet.
juice.
We'll meet 2 weeks
Don't
from
forget
now.
the juice.
I won't forget the juice.
in the room across from Pukeaholics Anonymous.
Yes, that's true. Well, anyway, I'm gonna go grab the cookies, and
Get
we're
the
going
juice and get them out of the oven. The cookies.
We're gonna read.
Remember the Jews.
We're
and
gonna
the
meet.
cookies.
We're gonna meet again in 2 weeks.
Remember the
We're reading A Catcher in the Rye.
I hate that book.
No!
Oh, we're reading it.
I only read one page of it and it bored me to death.
Miles Crenshaw says so.
Okay, this is it.
Yeah.
All I need's a great big congratulations.